Welcome to the Street Cred Manager. Still on the street. Now, continuing on with building resilience. This is part 2. And I'm trying to make sure that I cover off 2 main things that are really important as you evolve. Now, I ended off the last video by pretty much saying you're not going through an experience, you're growing through an experience. That's what's basically happening. The first one I want to cover off is live to learn. Now, live to learn basically means that you're growing and you're evolving. Now, how do I mean that? I'll give you a story to explain this the best way I can. There's a lady I know, her name's Sandra. Sandra has been through a lot of difficult times in her life. She was married, she had children. Her husband left her for a younger woman. She had to take care of her kids and run the household on her own. She put on a lot of weight when she went through this traumatic experience. After that, she said, I'm going to do this for my kids. And she lost a whole bunch of weight. She got back, she was fit. She went back into running. She loved running. She was a marathon runner. She went back into running. When she started doing all of this, she felt that her life was back on track. One day, got in the car. She was supposed to go and pick up her kids. She was at an intersection waiting, just like now. There were no cars there, so she went ahead. Out of nowhere, this car hit hers, T-boned her car, and something flew out of the car. Somebody, just before he got T-boned, threw out a frozen chicken at her face. Now, she was so happy that she's lost weight. She ended up in hospital. Every single bone in her face was broken. Multiple fractures in her legs. Couldn't go running. Now, this is a friend of mine in the States, and because it happened there, it's called vehicular manslaughter. Or it's grievous damage done by a vehicle, right? So when the cops found out who it was actually 2 kids who had stolen a car and gone for a joyride. The chicken was in the back of the car, and they thought it'd be funny to throw it at another car. The boys were remanded into juvenile detention, and when the cops came in to speak to her, they asked her, are you going to press charges? And she said, I want to know who are they first. And they said, for privacy reasons, we can't tell you. Somehow, through her connections or friends, she managed to find out who these boys were. And when she found out who they were, she started to dig a bit deeper. These boys, their parents had died at a really young age. And they moved from one juvenile home to another one. And they never really stayed in any one of them. Didn't really stay in school properly. Didn't have a good education. So she went to the police station. And they said, too late. Boys are going to get, don't know how you found out, but the boys are going to get sentenced in the next 48 hours. She found out which court it was. She turned up there on the day. In an unusual turn of events, she managed to make it into the courtroom, and actually, just before the sentencing happened, got to check out for cars here, it's getting late. So, just before sentencing happened, she put her hand up and she said, I do not wish to press any charges. I feel that these boys have not done anything wrong. The judge was astounded. He turned around and said, this is very unusual. Why are you doing this? Well, She turned around and she said, I know a little bit about these boys, so instead of sentencing them to juvenile detention, I'm asking if you can send them back to school. I don't know how they managed this, but the two boys were forced to go back to an education system. One of the boys now is studying to be a lawyer. I don't know if he's doing that because he can sue her back, but she found out that in the hardest point of her life, there was a shining light. She found out that there was something more in her life that was worth all that effort that she made. It didn't go to waste. She felt that if these boys got sentenced that day, their lives would have been ruined. She didn't want to be a part of that. She was capable of actually bringing herself to a level that's higher than anyone else. She decided to make an informed choice and a decision that would pretty much change their lives. Now, the example is an extreme one. Not many people go to the extent of doing something like that to someone else, especially after there's harm that's done to them. But she chose to evolve. So what I'm saying is this. We have situations, we have circumstances that are sometimes beyond our control. However, when you're managing people, not everybody's going to be happy with you. Not everybody's going to respect you. Not everybody's going to actually take your 2 cents and say, yes, that makes sense. In some cases, they might actually say the extreme. They might say, I don't give a damn for what you think. You're nobody to me. I don't owe you anything. They could say all these things. What I'm asking you to do is when you're going through an extreme situation, the way to build resilience is to find that silver lining. Is to find that situation or circumstance which you can push through and make a point. Not aggressively, not in a way that hurts somebody. It's got to build another human being. That's what servant leadership is about. It's about building another person. Because that experience, those boys will never forget. They will never ever forget that. The next thing I want to talk about, it's actually something slightly different. It's called opening your heart. This is from my own personal book, and this is something that's happened to me. So, let me give you the example first, and then what I'll do, I'll explain what the theory behind it is about. It's very easy when you're going through a difficult situation to go, I'm going through this. I'm in pain. I can't resolve this. I had this done to me. I'm going to give you a technique at the end of this to turn that thought into something else. It's going to require you to be conscious of when it crops up in your head. All of us go through something. All of us go through something difficult. All of us go through something devastating. But you know what? You're growing through it. You're growing through that experience. You're gaining something through it. You may not know it today. You may not know it in 6 months. One day it'll come back to you. This is what happened to me. I was working as a manager. I think at the point I had about 8 people reporting to me, doing the best I can, making sure that all the bases are covered, no one's unhappy, company got what it wanted. And I found that after a while, my efforts weren't really noticed, weren't really taken into consideration. So I'm not one to go and fight with anybody, so people who know me will know that I'm actually quite an introverted person. I know I'm an introverted person who's making a video. Think about that. So what I did, I had a little bit of money saved up. I decided to use that money to flip a home. Our own house needed to be renovated at the time, but I thought, okay, we'll do that house, and then we'll use that as the money that we get from there to renovate this house. Did all the sums, it worked out pretty well. Found a real estate agent with a house that they were interested in, where the owners were interested in doing that flip. So it was owned by somebody. The house had been destroyed by a drug addict, and they wanted to sell it. Regardless of which suburb you're in, the minute somebody walked in, it smelled of meth. So I wasn't going to give up my full-time job to do this. What I decided to do was to actually go the other way. I decided to hold down a full-time job, getting told off here. Decided to hold down a full-time job and to continue doing this. I would go to work at 6 in the morning. I would actually be up at 5. I would go to work as quickly as possible. On the way, I would check on the house, made up plans for each room, what had to be done. Now, over the course of a 3-month period, every day after work, I would go there and I would work on my own. Removing tiles, removing floorboards, plastering, painting. I got the plumbers to do the other work. Every single bit of it on my own, day and night. But something kept me going. I said, we're working towards something more. This is not gonna, this can't go wrong. We put it on the market. House was fully renovated, outside, inside, landscaping, everything. No one wanted to pay the price that I needed them to pay in order to make a profit. Yeah. The market had changed. 3 months, the market was looking quite bleak. And it was actually in a good suburb. So what did I do? I kept pushing. I kept finding a different way to market the property, to sell the property, put it out there. Didn't happen. Nothing happened. Would not budge. After 2 months, the original owners sent me a letter saying, we're taking the property back and we're taking it with all of your improvements. You can imagine, after spending $45,000, $50,000 on improvements, that's gotta hurt. Luckily, I had a good lawyer. We were able to sort everything out, but I still lost money on the transaction. I lost quite a bit of money. My wife, till today, every time she looks at me one way, I know the pain that she went through. And it's hard. You're doing it with your family, you know. You're doing it for your family and with your family. And it's something that just doesn't go from your mind. The amount of work, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it, it just doesn't go away overnight. So, at that point, I kept working. I actually poured myself into the work and pushed myself even harder. Now, while all that was happening, we were at the lowest point. Financially, morally, physically, just completely spent. Didn't have anything left in us. And a friend of ours called us one day. Said, hey, I know that you've been trying to get this dog. And I've been researching a particular breed of dog, and the breed is called Anatolian Shepherd. And I've been researching them for about 2 to 3 years. I've been talking to people, looking at the breed, you know, and got that call and I was told, do you wanna? Day one, when the dog walked into the house, they took a paw and then put it on my daughter's hand. And we knew that day that dog was gonna stay with us. It was the most beautiful moment that I ever went through. Just because you're going through pain, just because you're going through a tough time, there are opportunities even in that tough time to do something good. I never thought that would amount to anything. I never thought that it would create such happiness. True, we still don't have the money back, but what we have, or have had, is a beautiful experience of a new family member joining us. So what I'm trying to say at the end of this is live to learn, find your way, because there's always a silver lining, there's always a scenario where you can bring happiness. Okay, life gives you something at every point. It gives you something more. It's always adding to what you are. It's always creating a new scenario. When you're going through pain, don't think of resilience. Don't think of the word. This is what I do. When I'm going through a very difficult time, I use a simple trick to remind my mind not to keep focusing on the pain. Because marathon runners, I have a good friend who's a marathon runner, okay? And they use it all the time. Take your fingers, press hard. See that feeling? That sensation? When your mind ever hits a point where it turns around and says, your whole life is crap. This won't get better. There's no other way for you. This solution is not worth it. You won't ever make it. When you hear that happen in your head, I want you to do it. I want you to do it, and I want you to press. And when you press, you feel your fingernail digging into your skin. I want you to focus on that. But before you do any of this, before you go to bed today, get the ball rolling by doing this. Press the finger in, and I want you to think of the best experience you ever had in your life. The most unbelievably happy experience you had. And I want you to connect that with that feeling. Connect it with that feeling. So whenever that happens, you're automatically back in that happy, serene space. It's very easy to forget. It's very easy to forget all the 20 good things that have happened because that one bad thing wiped it away. It's very easy to give up. A lot of people do it. When I came to Melbourne, I didn't have anything when I started off. I came here with a suitcase, a white shirt, blue jeans, and that was it. That was all I had when I started off in Melbourne. Now remember, the lowest point of my life was when I was all alone. A roommate of mine had taken all of our belongings and left the house empty. The same day, I also lost all my rent money. And when all of that happened, I came home to an empty apartment without any money to pay for that month's rent. I had to sleep at Flinders Street. No, sorry, Flagstaff Gardens. Keep thinking of Flinders Street because I saw the renovations there. Flagstaff Gardens. I can point you to the tree that I was sleeping in a sleeping bag under. I remember the first guy who actually gave me a half-eaten burger at the time. And I remember what he said to me. It's not that bad. When I found out who this guy was, he used to be a branch manager for a national bank. Life can get bad, but life can also be really good. And when it's good to remember it and be grateful for it. This is part 2 of building resilience. The next part, when we cover it off, I'll square things up. But try and remember this, practice it, because you never know when you'll need it. This is the Street Cred Manager. It's getting dark, and I hope you have a warm, safe night. Take care.